Hey guys, today I'll talk about a small script I wrote to help me deal with fixed length ASCII files. Basically, it's files that looks like this. Um, they have a number of fields. Each field has a fixed length, and there are no separators between those fields, which makes them extremely difficult to read. Now, this is an example I found online, a screenshot, but the ones that I have to deal with look a lot like this. Unfortunately, I cannot show any of those, but you get the idea. So, where are these files used? Anywhere where you need to import a lot of data into SQL Server as fast as possible, I guess. It's usually done using BCP utility, which I personally never used, but obviously I read about it because I have to deal with these files. I will say they are often used and appears to be often used in agriculture industry, but I guess anywhere where you would need to aggregate a lot of data and insert it into database for further processing, it can be used. So, what's the problem with these? Occasionally, a file comes in and there is some problem with one field, and this file contains tens of thousands of records, and each record has like 30 plus fields, and they all join together. There is hard to find that field in this file to see what's going on with it. Or maybe you need to modify it, and you need to make sure you don't step over to the next field. And basically, I wrote a tool that will break this field, this rows up um, into the fields, and it will be easier for me to just to examine the records I need. So because I'm not gonna be showing the files that I'm dealing with, I found a documentation of a similar file. This is just an example, but basically it's just a small example. Usually these files, at least where I deal with them, they come in huge with a lot of fields. This one only has 4 fields. Mine often have 25, 30 fields, and each record and each file has tens of thousands of records. But this will be easier to demonstrate with the small one. So basically, you would get a file like this. This is the contents of the file, and each row here contains of 4 fields. The first one is subscriber EBID. It has the length of 13 characters. It starts with the first one, goes to the 13th character. Then you have an action code, which is 1 character. And they tell you what this could be. It doesn't really matter to me right now. There's another GTIN ID, which is 14 characters, and code of 30 characters. proprietary code. So, you even in a small file like this, it's hard to see which field is what and what values are there. I mean, for the action code, it's not that hard because one character and it's a letter, AARD right here. But with the numbers, it's a lot more difficult. So I wrote a tool that, oh, also, yeah, I wrote a tool that helps me break it down into the fields, but also with the data file, we always have a format file which describes this format. And the format file is being generated with BCP tool utility. It's from Microsoft for MS SQL Server to import um, to help to import this data into the database. But I will use the same format file to help me break it down into the fields. And this is how it looks. This is the format file. All right, and it's described on Microsoft's website also, like this structure of this format. And basically, each row of this format file corresponds to a column in an SQL table, and there's table column names and the length. This is basically what we need. Now this is more generic utility. It can help handle the files separated by something, by colon or anywhere, any string actually, not just one character. But those are usually easy to read. Like if it's a file, comma separated file, or even better, tab separated file, you can open it in Notepad++ and find the records you need and examine it. But if it looks like this, sorry, it's not that easy. That's why I need that utility. So that's how it works. It's a Perl utility. And you give it a format file and a data file. And it breaks it down into the fields. Now now it's easy to see what it is, and even if I need to modify it, I can more easily understand looking at the source file, where I need to modify what, or if there is an issue, I can look at the record, the field, and see maybe what the issue is. I do have search feature. Let's say it searches for all the fields, just to tests the whole string, each record. And there, it does show me which line it is. So if let's say I have a huge file, 15,000 rows, I can in Notepad++, and I just, let's say it's on line number 10,000, and I'll just go straight to that line. Okay, so it's pretty easy. Also, the search feature has the accepts regular expressions. I don't know what example to give. For example, we'll do 6 dot whatever. I understood. Anyway, any regular expression will do. Let's say can do A, D, and it's case insensitive by default. Sorry. Well, it worked anyway. So it found the A followed by the D. But anyway, you can use any Perl regular expressions that that will work. So let's talk a little bit about how this works, about the tool itself, about the script. So I declare here a few needed libraries that are being used. They get up along. I needed to process the command line options. Term and the color basically gives me the colored output. I do have an option to not use the color output in case I need to redirect the output to the file. Maybe it's just easier to examine it in the file in a text editor than in the console. Then this one lets me. It basically gives me this constant name that I can use instead of the number because it's just better, easier to read. And data printer, I'm not actually using it. I usually include it so I can debug stuff by printing out in a better way than just a regular prints. But anyway, it's here. So here I defined some configuration options. Most of them I take from the values for them I take from the command line prompt, the format file, data file, show top. This one will actually on huge files. Sometimes I just need to make sure I'm looking at the right stuff, and I can specify the top option will show me the first 3 lines. And I just defined here to show from first to third line. Of course, this can be changed and will work. The no colored output is the one that I just showed, and the search is the search volume. Now, the Perl version that I'm using does not have the prim function yet. They do have it in the latest one in 5.34, but anyway, it's easy to define using regular expressions. So I have it. Print usage just basically prints the usage, the help, and exit the program. The print value is a helper function to print the output either by either colored or non-colored, without color, just for readability. Some constant defines. These are the constants that are in the format file. So they basically come from here. Just again for readability, I could use the indexes, but it would be easier, nicer, and easier to read and understand the code later. So I use the constants for that. The name and data, we'll talk about that later. Just basically again for readability of something. Then I process the command line options. Basically, the values here that are provided on command line are being assigned directly into the config hash values, except for the help option. If I specify the help, print out the help for me, and then I do the same. I'll print usage if either format file or data file are not specified, because these are required for this to work. And the other options are optional. Now, next piece of code reads the format file. Again, it's this one. And it builds the format columns. It's hash of hashes, I think, yeah. Anyway, we open the file. Here we read the version line. We don't need it. We just go first two lines. We just read them out. We don't use this anywhere, at least in this version of the script. And then we go through each line by line, and do stuff with them. So we take the line, one line, we chomp removes the trailing, the line separation characters. It's either a new line or a line feed and new line. Depends on the file, the system usually. We skip if there is nothing in that line. Well, it's usually the last line, because there should not be any line skip, but anyway, ignore this last line, we will. And if it's a normal line, if starting from the third line, we split it into parts, and then we add the parts to the format columns array. We do it by reference. And anyway, then I guess the core of the workings of this of splitting the unreadable line into specific sized fields. I went with Perl's unpack command, I guess. Unpack command can do a lot in Perl, but this particular one that I'm gonna be using, it can take a bunch of a number, I guess format string, and it will take a string, and it will break that string into the fields of these length that are specified here. For an example, I will show you on the command line. Let's say from our test file, we'll take this line, and I already, oh, sorry, this is right. Where did I get these numbers? I got this from here. First field is 13, next one is 1, 14, and 30. 13, 1, 14, and 30. Basically, unpack will break this string into the bunch of strings of each length and return an array. And then we'll iterate through it and print it out. So this is how it looks. Boom. Pretty easy. Of course, it's easy now, but what if you have a format file with 30, 35 fields? It's all pain to build it out, and then you need to find the string, which is of course going to be really long, sometimes hundreds of characters. So that's why we have a tool that's more generic. So what we do here next is we build this string, the unpack string. This piece of code. We also gonna keep the track of the longest column name from the format. Longest of these strings, just so when we when we print this out, we can have a nice even column. And of course, we need the length of this number to also keep it straight. And that's what the longest column name length is. Again, we will iterate through each column that we read up here. Now here I do some Terminator formatting. I don't really need to do it because this script assumes it only works correctly with the files that don't have any separation of fields. I guess I was thinking a bit ahead to make it work, to make it more generic, but anyway. The eval, when we give it the string, the eval command will evaluate it and will return the actual tab character. That's what I do here. Also, this will return a zero length string. So like, I'll take this and then it will return just an empty string. And that needed for length calculations. Once we calculate the length, we add it to the unpack to the unpack string. So basically A and the number. If you remember, A and the number. And the number is actually basically this number. Like I said, I'm doing a little extra here, but maybe for the future. And I'm also counting the full length of expected data. So we're just basically adding these numbers up. And here we keep the length of the name of the field and of how many characters is here. It's one character or two characters. The easiest way to do it using the length, it will take the number. Yes, the length is a number, but Perl will automatically convert it to a string, and then we'll get its length. So the the number 30 will become a string with the characters 30, and we'll get length of it, and it's going to be 2. And then this with the dot will just add the new number to the unpack string. Of course, we're going to end up with an extra space at the end, and we'll trim it off here. So now we have the unpack string. Again, for this piece of code, we have this very important part. And now we just have to iterate through each line of the file, of the data file, and apply that unpack command to each of the lines, and then just print it out in a nice way. The first thing I do here is I open the file, I read the first line, just the first line, and I make sure its length is the same as expected length. Expected length, again, as we were building the unpack string, I kept kept the record of the complete expected length, and just to make sure we are using the correct format file, because in my practice I have a lot of different format files, and some of them are similar, and could be that if I use the wrong format file, then the whole output will be skewed. If there is an error, we'll get a message about it. We'll show the expected number of characters and the actual from the first line. Then we still do need that first line, so I find it easiest to just go back to the beginning of the file, and this 6 set is the constant that I imported here for readability. Anyway, this will get us to the beginning of the file, and then Perl actually automatically keeps track of the line that's being read as you go. So we need to reset it again because we use this value for the top command, the one that allows us to show just the top 3 lines. Okay, so we go back here. So we go back to the beginning of the file, and again we start going through the data file line by line. Read the line, jump it. Again, that removes the new line characters at the end of the line, and it's smart enough to understand if it's just new line or line feed and new line. Then we take care of the top command if it was specified. We make sure we are within the right, the defined number of rows that were defined to be printed out. And then we process the line. Well, I'll come back to this, to the search, but we print which line we are at right now. So it's this. It's a useful piece of information in a huge file. This is just, I know I checked it in the beginning, but I left it here. It was here for debugging purposes for me. And then we go through each of the fields. String, line. Yes, so we go through each field that's defined here, but is present here. and basically print for each one. We print the column name, its value, and to the print value subroutine, I provide the longest basically the longest field name, just so it can calculate the nice output. I guess I could define these values somewhere in the beginning of the file, so I don't have to provide it as a function argument each time, but doesn't matter at this point. So so yeah, that's it. The only thing here is we do check for the search values, and first we make sure either if there okay, we process these lines, these fields when there is no search term, or if there is a search term, we make sure that it matches. And basically, uh, this is the regular expression that was provided in the command line. We do apply the case insensitivity flag um, for just please of use, and that's it. That's how it works. I don't think I have anything to add. I think it's useful to me. Maybe somebody else works with the same kind of files and can find this useful. Um, that's it. Thanks.